I live in quite a small country town. There's a beach out there, which I often talk about. But in our small country town, we have what we call a volunteer fire brigade. And so these are volunteers in our community that volunteer to be part of a fire brigade, so that when the fire siren wails, it could be any time, day or night, um, they immediately respond. And we have one of our neighbours just a few minutes down, or just a few minutes down the road, and we hear the siren wail, ooh, and within like 30 seconds, we see him absolutely blatting past our place really fast. And because he's got to get to the fire station and get on the engine and go off to the emergency. Now, the speed zone around our outside in front of our place is 50 kilometres an hour. But when he's going past, he would go in excess of 80 kilometres an hour. He is flying because it's an emergency. Someone is in dire need of his help and he's allowed to break the rules. It could be a fire, it could be a car accident, it could even be a child down a well or a donkey down a well. Okay, the last two, you'll see why I mentioned those two, but they probably aren't those examples. Though a child down a well could be an example. I don't know, but these are emergencies, and there is a leniency in the law towards breaking the rules. By the way, there's plenty of people that break the rules that are not allowed to break the rules that drive very fast past our place. Look, you probably know someone who you would consider a rule keeper. You know, they have like a very strict set of rules that they live by. You can do this or you can do that. And if you break the rules, then you are frowned upon or even banished or rejected. And it leads to, it's kind of a trap of perfectionism. If you do this or that, and if you do it perfectly according to rules, then you'll get the reward. You may even please God. And God is viewed as this being of perfect standards and rules and commandments. There is a standard that must be attained, and to not do so means punishment. And like whole religions are built around keeping the rules. Some churches are very harsh in overt and covert ways of maintaining obedience to the rules. And we quickly run to the rules, I think, when we don't know how to relate, to go beyond surface level behaviorism. Larry Crabb says that groups tend to emphasize accountability when they don't know how to relate. I call this kind of relating um, early stage faith, early stage of faith behaviorism. Okay, much as a young child needs to know the rules of acceptable behavior, these churches and religions teach a rules-based faith. Behaviorism, because if you do it right, then you'll get it right, and we, the religious leaders, will judge your performance. And this rigidity, this judgment can lead to incredible levels of anxiety and depression. Anxiety that you might get it wrong, and depression when you do. Because none of us can get it right, can we? It's a religion of rule keeping, not relationship building. So, when I listen to people, I often ask myself, are they living in houses of justice, mercy, or grace? Are they living in a house of justice, mercy, or grace? Justice is getting what you deserve. Mercy, not getting what you deserve. Grace, getting what you don't deserve. Justice demands a set of rules to be lived by. And not keeping the rules can energize guilt and shame. Not meeting expectations imposed by yourself or others can be crippling. So I'm going to ask, which house do you mostly live in? Justice, making sure everything's done exactly right, mercy, or grace? What do you show to yourself? What do you show to others? Compassion lubricates the movement between those justice, mercy, and grace. Compassion for ourselves, compassion for others, and compassion including donkeys down a well. God's compassion for all of us, all of creation. How much compassion do you have for yourself? Where do your performance standards come from? In my last video, I talked about Sabbath, the importance of having a Sabbath, to cease and to stop. But there are some exceptions to the rule. And these exceptions are based on the immediate need for mercy and grace. And Jesus said this on one occasion when Jesus was going to a house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, okay, so it was a Sabbath day, and he was eating a meal in the house of a Pharisee, so these are like really high up religious people. They mean the lawyers and the people there, they were watching him closely. And have you ever had anybody really watch you closely? Just is he going to step? You know, just then, and it's really important to hear just then in front of him, there was a man who had dropsy, okay, an illness. And Jesus looked around and said to the lawyers and the Pharisees, "Is it lawful to cure people on the Sabbath or not?" They were silent. So Jesus took him, the man, and healed him and sent him away. Then he said to them, because he knew that he was being judged, "If one of you has a child or an ox that has fallen into a well, will you not immediately pull it out on a Sabbath day?" They couldn't reply to us. Luke shares some interesting words. He was being watched, okay? The rule keepers with their rule books were microscopically watching to see if Jesus would make a wrong step. They were living in the house of justice, black and white. Luke then writes, just then, in front of him, it's a surprise event, something not planned for. Wow, what do I do? Jesus asks the question. He puts the lawyers on a tight slot. It was a yes or no answer. They had to decide whether healing was a prohibited act of work. They couldn't answer him. Either way, they were going to look bad. Jesus went to grace and mercy, to the need for immediate action, to the plight of the one right in front of him. And it's the immediacy. It's the need for right here, right now, help that can't be organised for another day. It's placing relationship over rule keeping. There are exceptions to the Sabbath rule, and they always have to do with the care for the other, including animals, in the immediacy of the now. Now, I was brought up on a farm, and I think my dad had it right. On Sundays, he didn't work. He tried not to do any work at all. His focus was on worship and spending time relaxing and with the family, just recovering. The only exceptions to this rule that I ever saw was if there was a crisis or something related to welfare of the animals in his care. So a couple of examples. If the watering system that watered all the farm, like the pump and put water out to the animals and the troughs, if that broke down on a Sunday, he wouldn't leave it till the next day. He'd go and fix the pump because the animals would be in distress. Another situation was that if the next day, Monday, the shearers were coming to shear the sheep, he would go and get the sheep and put them in the shearing shed and get them all ready so that Monday morning the sheep would be there. They would be ready for the shearers to shear the sheep. Look, there may have been other times when he broke the Sabbath, but these were the only times I can remember. You see, my father had concern for the welfare of the animals. The Sabbath, the day to stop and cease, was created for rest. The question is, what came first, humanity or the rules? You see, we like rules. Rules keep us safe, but rules, if taken to the extreme, can keep us from showing mercy and grace to those in immediate need. Look, you need to rest. You need to stop. Cease, Sabbath. That's a rule for everyone. Okay, but there is always a demand there seems to be always a demand from somebody that wants to interrupt that rest. It could be an email that needs responding to. It could be a meal that needs to be prepared. It could be a visit to the shops for a birthday present for a friend for the coming week. The question is, can this be done tomorrow? All right. Could this, with better planning, have been done last week? Meal preparation, buying a friend for the present for the friend. And if this is so important, is this really so important that I need to stop my resting? And if so, why? Look, Jesus points to the example of a child or an ox in a well. Immediate action is required, of course. But if this keeps happening all the time, every Sunday, every Sabbath, then you got to wonder about the seriousness of how the welfare of the child or donkey is considered. Because if it was really serious, during the week, during the 6 days, you would go and build a fence, wouldn't you, around the well, to stop the child or donkey getting into the well. And then on the seventh day, you wouldn't have to worry about that happening again. You could rest. You see, it's about grace. Jesus said this, the Sabbath was made for humankind and not humankind for the Sabbath. In other words, the command to have a day of rest was made for the benefit of humans and our need for rest. Humans weren't made so they could keep a set of rules. Right? We sometimes get that round the wrong way. We see the rules and we say, oh, we're made to keep those rules. No, it's the other way around. So we grace ourselves, we plan for the week, we respond, of course, to the immediate calls for help, but then we build fences for donkeys and small children. I like to build my life around what I call a Sabbath-centric life. And if you come over to the website, if you look on the blog, you'll see I've got like a spiral, right? And it's a theme throughout the whole blog. And what I think is like a Sabbath-centered life. So my work goes down, round into the middle, which is the Sabbath day where I can rest and re-energize. And from that energy, I can go out, and then I can come back in to the Sabbath day and rest. How do you keep your Sabbath-centric? This is stuff from last week, but number one, plan. Plan to cease. Plan to stop all your normal everyday work activities. Plan ahead for the Sabbath, for the week ahead. If you see a risk of a well that a donkey or child could fall into, build a fence. Okay? Plan for resting. Plan how you will rest. Sleep, napping, taking a walk, watching birds, playing. Third thing is enjoy. Dive in deep. Savor the taste of your food. Eat slowly, drink slowly, smell the roses. And fourth, worship. Give worth and praise back to God who brought all of this together. Hey, if you enjoy this, leave a comment down below. Comments really help me keep going and doing this. Forward it to someone else. Share it with somebody else. Share it through your social media places. Perhaps come over to the website, sign up to the email list, and you're going to get an email every week about content like this. Thanks very much, and remember to build some fences around those things that could distract you from having a rest.